All right, we're going to get started here and get things going. The idea of this webinar is just to open up questions to anyone who's going to be attending the annual show, or who's just interested in knowing what kind of cattle is going to be out west there. So we're going to go ahead and get this started. We're going to start off with Jamie. Jamie, would you be willing to just introduce yourself, name your farm, where you're located in comparison to Biden Acres?
Yeah, I can try to do that. Good afternoon. And my name is Jamie Hostetler. My wife and family own Rolling Meadows. It's a 172-acre farm, along with adjoining rental land and adjoining land that we own. We total combined acres, we run about 300. And it's all most of it was in row crop when we started the farm back in 2010. We took it out of row crop, put it back into grass, some of it hay ground, and most of it in grazing land. And as far as where we're at in location to the conference, we're about 2.5 hours west in Bellevue, Iowa, sitting right on the Mississippi River, about 25 miles south of Dubuque.
Okay, thank you for doing that. I think we'll just go ahead and get to you, Jamie. Sounds like you only have a few minutes to be on the call.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And do you want to, are you open to guests coming to your event, after, before, or after, or during? I mean, it sounds like it's kind of a crazy time for you right now, so I don't know what your schedule is going to be like, but I just wanted to let, people know that they could possibly set that up if you're willing.
No, we would be happy to do that. Obviously, if I know that I have people coming, if they can contact me ahead of time just to make sure it's going to work into our schedule. But we do quite a bit of tours throughout the summer of individuals coming, looking at cattle, looking at our grazing program, and so on, and that we would enjoy sharing what we have.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And if you're wanting to find Jamie's contact, you can find it there on the breeders list at Red Devon USA. So I appreciate that, Jamie. You mind sharing with us what cattle you're going to be bringing to David's, what we'll see on display there, and maybe a little bit of history about them, or maybe some bloodline information?
I can do some of that. We have not actually finalized exactly which cattle we're all bringing, but our plan at this point is to bring some mothers and daughters, and potentially one bull. Most of our lines have kind of go back to 3 different foundation cows or foundation animals in our herd. The first foundation cow that we brought in was back in 2008. She was purchased in Rhode Island, and was one of the few cows that we bought that really jump-started the purebred side of our herd. I don't know if they can look up and see any of her pedigree information, but she was Rosebud, or J11 as she was known. We had gone to this sale in Rhode Island wanting to pick up a foundation cow, and Gerald Fry was at that conference that year, and we kind of told him our herd from, and he picked out this individual animal. And without going into too much time and detail, she turned out to produce a lot of good genetics for us. Deep-bodied, wide flanked cows that we really were after. Secondly, we brought in quite a bit of Rhodokawa semen and used that on top of these foundation cows. So we have Rhodokawa in most of our background. We personally feel that adding a little bit of Rhodokawa in the background does for us what we want with Rhodokawa. We did have some challenges of udder issues and so on from them that we worked out of, and but the muscling, the growth, and things that Rhodokawa, the strengths they had, we continued to utilize. We'd also, maybe the second group of foundation animals that we brought in came from down in North Carolina there, the Lenore Creek Devon farm. We'd toured a lot of cows, a lot of farms in our search of females, especially high quality females. And we found in that herd probably a higher number, or a consistent number of cows. And so we handpicked a few of those and brought those home as well. And so in our herd, you'll find a little bit of Lenore Creek, in addition to the Rosebud family. Later, we brought in some of the Australian genetics, the Tirana, semen, and I guess we also had a bull or two that we actually used on our farm. So we have Tirana, American Devon, and the Rhodokawa as the three basic foundation groups that we've built our herd from. What we try to focus on in a mama cow is obviously one that has a good udder, an animal that has a good slope from hooks to pins, has a good shoulder rotation, nice spring of rib, but especially a nice wedge from front to back, deeper in the back, wider in the back, the typical female look that we're after in those cows. And then on the bull side, obviously we focus more on the front end. We're looking for a bull that's deep chested, but especially wide and very masculine fronted, something that will stamp his progeny and has, if you look at the bull's dams and grand dams, has a history of production and performance in front of them.
That's great. Thank you. Appreciate that, Jamie.
Yep.
As a follow-up question to that, what do you see this year that excites you and your up and coming calves? Maybe is there something that you've improved upon since last year, or maybe is there something you want to improve upon, for next year, looking at this year's crop?
Probably one of the things that we've done this year is we have reached out and used some different semen. So we won't see that progeny until next year. We're fairly performance oriented. And so we look at our weaning weights, we look at our overall ratios of weaning weights to dam weights at weaning and so on. And we made some decisions to bring in some semen from a couple different bulls that we think will add that to us. Some of our mama cows have, over the last several generations, have gotten smaller, and therefore we don't expect quite the growth out of those. But when we bring in a bull like the red dude from Jeremy Yang, we feel like we've used a couple of his bulls this summer, and we think that's going to take us another step in the right direction. Otherwise, I guess you would say it's a journey for us, bringing the right production for both. We finish a lot of our own cattle, especially the Devon crosses, and we feel like we get to see the decisions that we make all the way to the end. And so we're constantly focusing on improving those decisions and those genetics to take us further in the direction that we want to go.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. I should have. I probably should have made that part of our opening statement. As far as your goals, and what you're doing with these animals. Are you just looking to market breed stock, or are you mainly doing meat production, meat quality?
Yeah, we do basically three things. Obviously, we do breeding stock. We sell a number of bulls and bred heifers and cows almost every year. It grows a little bit more. And then we also, on our Devin cross stock, our commercial herd, we direct market some of our own, and then we also wholesale market every year. This year I think we're selling 2 semi loads that are going to a grocery chain in the West, and we've actually facilitated marketing a few of our folks that have bought bulls from us. Those calves coming back either as fats or finishing in our own program, and then we're marketing them out wholesale. So we wholesale, direct market, as well as a breeding stock sale.
Okay. Do you have to purchase some of your own feeder animals, or are you able to generate those all yourself?
No, some of those we purchase. So there's one particular farm that fall calves that bought stock from us in Missouri, and he calves in the fall. He keeps them over that second winter. Then we buy them in the spring and run them through to through the fall and sell them that second fall as 2-year-olds.
Okay, so you're really purchasing them around like 800 to 900 pounds and finishing?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay.
Yep. And we do buy a few others as well, just locally, people that we sold bulls to that spring calve, and we'll buy them, basically at 10, 11 months and put them back into our program and finishing them as well. But the biggest share of them come from that Missouri farm.
Yeah, that's excellent. If you can find a source like that. I know I've tried to kind of generate my own as well, and tried to have someone using some sort of Devin influence with a bull, whether it be using buying straws, or if they have leased my bull or something and buy them back. But this year I did that as kind of an experiment, and I noticed they're really growing a lot of frame and not as much meat and muscle, and so I wouldn't call it a success on my end. And do you share some of those same struggles and when you're buying feeders?
So if you're not careful, especially depending on the females they have, that can certainly be a challenge. If they're more of a commercial cow that's larger frame, and you put a Devon bull on top of them, you get that heterosis. It can end up being a situation where you have more frame and less yield. But we have been pretty fortunate. I sold a group of, this would have been Red Angus dams and bred to a purebred Devon bull. And the dams were probably not more than 1,100 pounds max. And those have worked exceptionally well in our meat program. That first cross, I think we weighed a couple of them here when we shipped them, and they were right at 24 months, and they weighed just a little over 1,300 pounds.
That's great. It sounds good.
Yeah.
Also thinking about asking you along those lines. I guess I was thinking you kind of kept referring back to, someone that has used, Devon influence in some way for your crossbred. What do you feel, that having that Devin influence does to help your meat quality and the crossbred side?
A couple things for sure. One is it makes them more docile, especially if they're dealing with stock that is a little bit less docile than what we like to see. It does that, but it certainly adds their tenderness, to the program. We feel we get some really good yields, with the Devin influence compared to even just, for example, straight red Angus. Some of those that we've looked at, and I guess probably the big thing is the tenderness. We do get really good flavor in general from those Devon cross stock. They're a lot easier to handle than some of the non-Devons that we brought a group of just straight red Angus in this spring. We didn't buy any of them ourselves, but a couple of people that are finishing for us. And some of those were great. Some of those were wild and wanted to kill you. And so we feel the Devon certainly brings to the table a different animal. It seemed like they just trust you more. There's always that exception, but they just trust you more than some of those, breeds that are especially coming from the West where there's not as much, human interaction that we typically see from the Devons.
That's great. Thank you. That's kind of what I was hoping you were going to say. I know I did that meat webinar back in the spring, and that was something I mentioned to another lady on that call, and I said there's something about the Devon, trait that really does give you that insurance policy on tenderness, and so I'm glad to hear other people mention that as well.
The local butcher, I should share this story quick. Local butcher that we use, after we've used him for a little while, he come to me and he said, "What's about the grass-fed beef?" He said, "Your beef looks more like grain-fed beef than most of the grass-fed beef that comes in here. It's marbled, it's more typical." But he said it's tender. So we cut a lot of beef, and he said we know about how many beef we have to go through or how long we can cut without resharpening our knives. And he said when we're cutting your beef, we notice we don't have to sharpen them as much.
Yeah.
And I had never heard that before, but that was his take on the breed of cattle that we're running.
That's great. Great to hear that. Then one more question there before I let you go, and I'll move on to some of these other guys. I know you're busy. My last question is, what advice would you give someone that's buying their first cow or starting a herd from scratch?
That's a great question. I guess probably what comes to my mind first is define your goal. Are you looking to buy an animal primarily for just the interaction with, kind of like a pet scenario? Or are you looking to getting into the purebred side of the business where you're going to eventually want to market purebred stock? Or do you want to enter into the grass-fed market where you have beef for your own family and for a few friends? So I would define my objective first, and then that would help me determine what animal I was going to purchase.
Yep, that's great. Thanks for that information. I appreciate that. Jamie, you think you're gonna hop off the call then?
Yeah, I think I better.
Okay. Yep, sounds great. I appreciate that. I don't see any other questions up here right now. So yeah, I appreciate your time and look forward to seeing you out there.
All right. I will look forward to seeing you when you get here.
Yeah, good luck. Blessings to your family there.
Yep. Thank you. Bye now.
Sheldon, are you okay on time? You can bear with us here for the next half hour.
Yeah, I probably can. Yep.
Okay. David, do you have a preference? You want to go next, or I can bounce back and forth between the both of you and answer some of these same questions I just asked Jamie?
Whatever works best for you. If we want to bounce back and forth, that's fine with me.
Okay. Yeah,
Jamie
why-
gave some pretty good answers to those questions. It'd be hard to match some of those.
Yeah, he did well. Why don't you just brief us, David, on what people can expect to see whenever they reach abiding acres and your place.
Yeah, so to start off, Abiding Acres Farm was started, probably 13, 14 years ago now, as a vision of my dad's. And he lived in town. He wanted us to learn where our food came from, know how to grow our own food, raise our own food, and then process our own food. And the whole experience from field to your plate. Basically, he wanted us to recapture some of the skills that had been lost through the generations. So what started out as just a small family hobby farm, I kind of took that and ran with it. Now my wife and I manage the family farm here. My dad and some of my brothers are still involved. Part-time, but my wife and I manage most of the day-to-day operations. Currently, right now, we're running about 150 acres. 70 of that is hay ground, and 80 or so acres is pasture. So we practice rotational grazing, so you'll see that when you get here. We've got the main herd right now is set up on a once a day rotation. We have 4 different pastures that we're running throughout the summer, and the rotation time varies based on the time of the year and the herd size of the pasture. But the main farm here, we're at once a day rotation at this point.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, AJ.
I was just going to ask you. I know that there's going to be someone there talking about some annual seeds and stuff. Are you guys using improved forages on like using annuals to help?
So most of our pastures are just a pretty plain orchard grass, fescue, clover, touch of alfalfa, but not much. We have done some interseedings with sorghum Sudan grass and rye, cereal rye that we graze off before it goes to seed head. Currently, right now, I don't have any of that going. We had 10 acres of sorghum Sudan grass that we no-tilled into like a CRP type field, just coming out of been sitting dormant for 2 years. We just picked it up this year and no-tilled sorghum Sudan grass into it. We grazed that about a month ago, and we're really dry here this year. We've had the lowest rainfall since we started farming. We're at a total of 12 inches of rain for the entire season. So everything's been pretty dry here, and that annual seeding didn't really take very well. So we went ahead and plowed it up and put it into perennial pasture mix after we grazed it.
Okay. What are you guys only raising cattle, or are you raising other species?
We have a diverse farm. We run, in addition to the cattle, we run some sheep, a couple goats, and some hogs, and some pastured poultry, but the cattle are the primary operation.
Okay. About how many head do you think we'll expect to see when we get there?
Here at the main farm, we'll have about About 50 head altogether. Total head, we're running about 100, but that's spread around between 4 different farms, 3 or 4 different pastures.
Do you have them broken up in like according to age group, or what?
No, it's more just management type. So for example, at the main farm here, we have a mixed group of purebred and crossbred cows. So it's a group of the purebreds are cows that we're AIing, and then the commercial cows, the crossbreds are embryo recipients for our ET program. And then calves. We don't have any stockers at the home farm. All the stockers and finishers are at some different pastures.
Okay, sounds good. I'm gonna jump over here to Sheldon. You there, Sheldon?
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we got you.
Yeah. Okay. For some reason I got muted again. So.
Oh, there was a little bit of background noise. That was my fault for muting you. And then I thought I could pull that off easy, but.
Yep, that's fine. No problem.
So yeah,
what was the question? I had to step away a little.
Oh no, that's fine. No, I just wondered if you would fill us in on what your farm is and what are some of your goals that you're running there.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, my name's Sheldon Headings. I've got a wife and a family. We've got 7 children, 2 boys and 5 girls. They are ages 16 and on down to about 4 months old. We have, I'm trying to think how many acres of pasture. 70, probably about 105 to 110 acres of pasture and another 20 acres of hay. We also have some row crop ground. We've got about 80 some acres of non-GMO corn this year. I'll have a little more than that next year. We also have the chickens. We've got a chicken barn. A whole 20,000 pastured non-GMO chicken, or their layers actually. So we have to have 50 acres of pasture fenced in, but we also run our cows in that pasture. So the cows actually do most of the grazing. The chickens do some up closer to the chicken house, but they don't get out to all the 50 acres. So a lot of the 50 acres of pasture is for the chickens. I do have some improved forages. The last couple of years, I have done quite a little more of the improved forages, and I will say this: the yields I'm getting off of the improved forages, I'm very happy with. Some of that, I'm getting at least a third more than just what I had. And a lot better quality too. So I'm really happy with what I've gotten from. I've used Prairie Creek Seeds Diverse Master and added some things to it. Took a little bit out of it to kind of make my own custom mix, but the basic is still their Diverse Master. I'm real happy with that blend. We do some sorghum Sudan, what they call our summer blend. It's a blend of sorghum Sudan grass, etc. It's got some brassicas and clovers in it. We also do their cool season, what they call their cool season combo, which has rye, a little bit of oats, I think, triticale in it, and some brassicas, maybe a clover, crimson clover in that too. Might be a couple other things too. I'm probably hairy vetch is one of them. So we've used that. That's kind of the grasses and the acreages we're running. As far as we've used the Devin, we've started in the grass-fed feed business since 2006. We started with crossbreds. They were Angus cows, bred Devon bull. And then later we got into purebred Devons and so on. We are actually phasing out the Angus side of it. And I bought a purebred Hereford bull. And I'm crossing the Hereford bull with the Devons that I no longer purebred. I'm no longer putting to the purebred bull. You know, those females that either don't have good enough udders or whatever may be the reason. I no longer have them in my purebred herd. I'll put them over to a Hereford bull and get an F1 cross out of them. So we're actually going away from going towards the Hereford Devon crosses for our meat program. I'm still definitely in the purebred Devon business. There's no doubt about that. Some of the lines, we've used a lot of the same lines as Jamie, but a few others. And one of them that I would definitely like to mention, there was a bull that Hillside Pastures had Daniel Marquardt started out with. His name was Hillside Peterson. And we've really been impressed with the cows out of that bull. I think actually he's still alive and being used up in Wisconsin, if I'm right. Is that correct, David?
Yep, that's correct. I just saw him a month ago.
Right. But two of my best cows that have, production-wise, the best udders and that have just risen to the top of my herd are both out of that bull. Maggie and Hillside Magdalena and Hillside Fancy. Both of those cows have proven themselves in our production system. And going forward, what I've actually done, so the 2014 Grand Champion female I had at the Devon show was Circle K Devon's Mary. She was a half Rhodecowa and half out of Johnny Yates' herd. Would have been the Ina cow. The Ina cow was an exceptional cow. Her tag number was P4. We always refer to her as P4. Now Jamie has a P4 too that he uses as a foundation cow. That's not the same cow, so you don't want to get those two confused. But yeah, she was half 688. The Circle K Devon's Mary half would have been, the dam would have been Ina, or that P4 cow.
Okay.
And we did flush her. I also, so a lot of my females ended up coming from her. And then I ended up going down to Lenore Creek and picking a heifer out that I really liked, bringing her home and flushing her also. So we've got foundation from Lenore Creek, Rhodecowa, and we did end up using some Tirana semen. There's also quite a bit of Tirana in some of our animals, not near all of them, but some of our animals have Tirana in them.
Okay. Are some of those animals going to be at the show at David's?
Yep, they are.
Okay, great.
Actually, I'm thinking about bringing Hillside Magdalena along and her bull calf. Her bull calf is probably one that I'm more excited about than anything I've had since I've started. And my breeding goals are, a very productive female is what I'm after. I want a female that weans more than 50% of her body weight. You know, calves on time every time, and has a good udder. If you want to know what type of female I like a Bonsma type female. That's basically what we breed for. You know, Jamie talked about the high rotating shoulder blades, the good slope from hooks to pins, and so on. And yeah, we put that in a package. And the other thing I don't think you want to miss is also good butter fat in the females. That's what makes that. Butter fat is the most efficient thing. If you can get a cow that turns a lot of her grass into butter fat, she'll turn that calf, and that calf will put on the weight, and that's how you get the weight on the calf. I'm not looking for weight just through frame size. We want stay with a moderate framed animal. I don't want a real short animal either. I think you can go too short, and I think we have gone down that route. You know, I want a bull that's basically I like to see my bulls in frame score 3.5 to 4.5, with 4 being the average. Yeah. Basically, I don't know what else I want to know, but that's our breeding goals is, you know, we're breeding for a female. And getting back to that bull calf that I'm really excited about. So what I did, I've got C15 was my main herd sire for quite a few years. He would have been half Circle K Razorback, which would have been a 100% Toronto bull. And he was out of Mary, that Circle K Devin's Mary, the 2014 Grand Champion. He's a nice bull, phenotypically. I'll have him up there, actually. And I bred him to Hillside Fancy, and she had a pole bull. He's horned. She had a pole bull calf, and then I ended up breeding that bull calf to Hillside Magdalena, and that's the bull calf she's got at her side today.
Yeah.
So one of my main breeding goals is getting as many females, really good females, stacked into the pedigree of my herd bull that I can absolutely get. I want to make a bulletproof pedigree, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, every female in that line, in that bull's line, I want a good one. And I think the more good ones you have, the more bulletproof the bull will be, as far as just breeding good females and having good daughters.
Okay.
So basically, I've stacked both of the 2 best females, and there's some line breeding in there, in my herd into this young bull. He's pulled. I think he's looking good, especially for being a line bred bull. And yeah, he does have C15 all the way on the top side, but so it was a aunt nephew breeding. So I've got Hillside Peterson twice now on the papers. We'll be on the papers of that bull. So I'm pretty excited about using that bull as my herd bull to improve all my females.
So you touched on, you know, as part of your breeding goals, you know, 50% of the birth weight, so your weaning weights, good udder, and the evaluation of the cow. Like, how do you quantify, you know, some of the other things, as far as if we're looking at like butter fat? Are you looking at you know, how quickly they're breeding back? What are some other things that you're like quantifying whenever you're trying to pick out, you know, probably your best performers? Is it all just visual, or is there something that also goes with it?
Yeah. Well, I think if you don't have a real framey cow and you're not getting weight off a frame, well, you are getting weight off of butter fat. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yep.
Yep. In other words, if you don't just have a big old framey cow that's got a big calf that's real stretchy, and he just put on weight that way, if you got a small to medium sized frame cow that actually is doing her work, you know, the visual is the 50%. That's what tells you whether you have butter fat or not. There are some indicators of butter fat. I just haven't found them real consistent yet. That they say, you know, that some of the old books have said that, you know, like Gerald Fry and Steve Campbell. You know, I'll go with the 50% first, and that, you know, if I'm picking out a heifer, I don't have anything else to go by. I will take some of those visuals into consideration, but at the end of the day, the data is what tells me.
Yep. No, I get you. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because I mean, Johann Zitzman always, you know, he put a lot of emphasis on, you know, how soon your heifers would breed back, and that, you know, that's how he liked to identify some of them. So I was curious if that was part of your program as well.
Yeah, heifers are, but also I just watch the cows a lot. You know, those first ones to calve every year, like Hillside Fancy and Hillside Magdalena, those cows calve first every year, just the way it is.
Yeah,
they've got calf. They'll have a calf within a day or two of each other. You know, that just tells me. And I don't have such a large herd that you know, I know each cow personally. You know, I still can. I feel like I have a personal touch with each cow, that I know how she's performing. You know, it's not just a number, maybe in that sense. I can keep better tabs on a little smaller herd, if that makes any sense.
yeah, that probably get you. Well, you'll be able to get to see your feedback from your peers there whenever you bring that animal over to David. So look forward to that.
Yeah.
You mind telling me for finishing weights, where you usually end up with your steers hanging weights?
Live weights were probably between 1050 and 1150 right now. And actually the last couple of years we've dropped down closer to 1050. We are trying to push those back up. That's one reason for bringing the crosses back in. And yeah, I feel we went too far, frame size too far down. And we can finish bigger cattle than that. It's not a problem.
Yeah, gotcha. So you're finishing weights. If you're at the 1050, what you're looking at, you know, high 5s, low 6s.
Yep, right.
Okay, gotcha.
Generally, our carcass weight will be 57 to 58% of the live weight. We just run right in there.
Okay. And then going back to your grazing, your annuals, are you getting several grazings out of your annuals depending on, you know, when you're planting them?
Yep, we usually get 2 grazings out of them. So if we have like a spring annual, I'll get 2 grazing in the spring. If I put in a summer annual, I'll get usually 2 grazing, sometimes even 3 out of the summer, you know, the sorghum sedan.
Okay. So that's what I was kind of curious about that. I have a rental farm that I just picked up that it was real poor shape, and I put a summer annual in there at end of May, beginning of June. And I've just been letting it. I was just trying to build as much tonnage as I could late in the year. It just was so slow to grow. I'm only going to look to get 1 grazing out of it. I'm at to graze it tight, but I was just trying to figure out how to wake up that ground without just putting thousands of dollars of fertilizer back in, you know?
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. I've done that already, you know, just let it grow and done it that way. And it's good for the ground. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, just like I say, trying to think of other ways to do it. I know for me, it's tough to pencil out when you're looking at it that way, because I'm not getting near the forage production that you are, you know, and doing it in a couple grazings or even 3. So I'm sure it pencils out a lot better for you in that fashion as well. David, why don't we shift over to you? You want to touch on some of these things that Jamie talked about? Let's, you know, maybe some of your foundation animals and and what you're currently trying to do to improve your herd?
Sure. So as far as foundation animals go, when we first started out, we did not spend a bunch of money on any one particular cow. We did learn a little bit of the hard way, the importance of starting with good genetics. So we had to call pretty heavily the first couple of years. And then after that, we started bringing in a lot of embryos, high quality embryos, and then doing a lot of AI breeding. So on the female side, our foundation lines go back to that Lenore Creek, the Rhoda line, some of the old American genetics from Lakota Ranch, some of the Tirana genetics. And then we've also had really good success with the Tapaway lines from New Zealand. Some of our most productive cows up to this point that we've raised here on the farm have been out of Tapaway, some Tapaway genetics. And then as far as what we're doing to improve the herd, the biggest thing for us has been, most importantly is culling, removing animals that don't meet our standards. And our standards are pretty similar to what Jamie and Sheldon both mentioned, that ideal type cow that we're working for, a cow that can wean 50% of her body weight, and also keep good condition in the process and get bred back. Our forage quality is pretty low for our area. It's probably similar to a lot of the forages in south of us and east of us, but we're not in a really high quality forage environment, at least according to local standards. But yeah, the AI has been the biggest improvement, because I assess each cow individually and then select a bull to pair with that cow that best suits that cow's strengths and weaknesses. And that has allowed us to make some pretty good improvements in a short amount of time. Some of the genetics that we're real excited about right now, we've got calves on the ground. That Page Road Farm Pete, sire of the Peterson bull that Sheldon mentioned, we've got half a dozen calves on the ground out of him from this spring and this summer, that we've been real happy with those in the past. We're looking forward to what these new calves bring. So it's each animal we try to improve. We try to improve one animal at a time. There's not necessarily one trait that I'm looking to improve overall in the herd, besides just in general increasing depth of body, femininity in the cows, a nice wedge shape, and good width, good loin muscle all the way through. But we've got a pretty wide variety of genetics that people see when they come.
The bull that you got champion with there in 2019, fall of 2019, is there going to be some calves from him there that we'll see?
Yeah, there'll be a couple calves. Nothing. I actually, the first year I used him as a cleanup bull, and we got one purebred heifer calf out of him that I sold. I'm kind of kicking myself for selling it, but I've seen pictures of it now as a yearling, and I'm really wishing I hadn't sold her. But yeah, we've got several calves out of him on the ground now. Like I mentioned before, we do mostly AI, so I don't have more than 4 or 5 calves out of any given bull at a time, which there are downsides and upsides to that as well. But that bull will be here, Abiding Acres Prince Rupert. He'll be here. Some of his offspring will be here. We've got a group of cows that we bred to him this summer.
Okay, sounds great. Yeah, that was going to be a question of mine as far as, is it a little bit of a struggle with doing different AI? I mean, that's great. I love to hear that you're matching up the quality, the weaknesses, and providing strengths to the calves. And that's why I was just curious if it was hard to evaluate sometimes on your top performing cows and calves with different age groups, or I mean not age groups, but different sires.
Right. It does make it a little more difficult, when comparing cows, because, I know certain bloodlines, for example, if I take a small framed old American style, traditional genetics cow that's say, 1,100 pounds, and I breed her to breed her to an unrelated bull, say a tap away 635 or something, that cow will have a very large, growthy, robust calf, because it's pretty much, it's the same. You're breeding Devin to a Devin, but you're almost getting the heterosis of an outcross, because those bloodlines are so unrelated. So you have to take that into consideration when you take that same 1,100 pound cow and breed it to a moderate framed American Devon bull that's not necessarily line breeding, but still within the same genetic pool. It's gonna give you a much different calf, which neither of those are in and of themselves good or bad. It just depends on what you're trying to accomplish with that calf.
Yeah, it makes sense. There's been a lot of great information from all you guys. I really appreciate that. I think I'll go back to Sheldon on the ending question that I gave Jamie, and that was, what advice would you give someone buying their first cow, or they're starting a registered herd? Sheldon, are you available? All right, David, how about that question? Would you mind answering that for me?
Sure. So as far as selecting a purebred foundation female, knowing what I know now, what I look for in a female, you want to preferably start with an animal that's got some age to her. A lot of people like to start with heifers, but there's there's more risk with that. If you do start with a heifer, make sure you go back and look at her mother's production records. And then just have that ideal type cow that you're looking for in your mind when you're evaluating the animal. A nice wedge shaped cow, feminine in the front, deep bodied in the flank, nice width of rump, good length of rump, a nice udder. Preferably, when I'm looking at an udder, I like a udder with teats on the smaller side, that the calf isn't going to have any trouble getting on as a newborn. Preferably low hair on the udder. I've seen cows with hairy udders, especially thicker, coarse hair, dark hair at least. I've had trouble breeding back and don't milk as well. And then looking at the animal's production records, in light of her environment compared to what your environment will be. For example, making sure that if you're in a grass-fed operation, that you're buying seed stock from an operation that is also grass-fed with similar management styles. We've had animals that came from Even within grass-fed management, there can be quite a wide variety of forage qualities. And animals will perform a lot differently depending on the way they're managed. So an animal that looks amazing on somebody's very low stocking rate, unlimited grazing may not do so well on your your limited fescue rotational grazing. So that's what I would recommend. Find an animal from a farm that's producing as close to what you're trying to do as possible.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, great points there as far as environment, and then also production records, because that's going to be the benefit of getting an older cow, right? So you get to see her offspring and how they've done.
Right.
So yeah, it's great. Appreciate that. Sheldon, are you back with us? So David, I know you talked about a drought this year. Is there any other challenges that you face? Has drought been, kind of one of the more severe issues you've had to deal with this year?
Drought has been the biggest issue to deal with this year. We haven't had a drought like this since we started. Fortunately, we made the decision pretty early on to actually send some of our animals out and have them custom grazed, some of our stockers, and that was a really good decision. Allowed us to take some of the pressure off the home farm here. We did have to feed hay for a couple weeks. Or in, I guess it would have been end of July, early August, which we don't like to do, but that again allowed us to take the pressure off the pasture and allow it to get some regrowth on it. But other than that, there haven't been any huge challenges this year.
That sounds great. Thanks, David. Any kind of last remarks on just something you want to talk to about people that are going to be coming as a host of this event?
Well, I want to thank you, AJ, for all the work that you've put into this call and the event. Wouldn't be possible without you and the many hands that are working together to make it come together. We're excited about it. I think we've got an educational program that we hope everyone will enjoy and take away something new from. We've been doing this we've been in the purebred Devon business for 7 or 8 years now, and there isn't a Red Devon conference or event or field day I attend and I don't learn something new. So we're excited, and we invite everyone out to come visit the farm and
that's good. Thanks, David, for
fellowship.
doing the call as well. Sheldon, you're back on?
Yep, I'm back on.
Okay. I apologize for that. That's probably me not understanding this platform as well also, but just looking for some closing remarks from you, Sheldon. I appreciate doing the call with us and just seeing if you had any closing remarks, and look forward to seeing you out there.
Nope, I don't know that I've got a lot more to say. Probably as far as I look forward to really seeing everybody again and, talking Devon, talking breeding strategies. I do think, in breeding, you need to keep an open mind, and you need to keep your eye on production, because production is what pays the bills. You have to have that. So regardless of what your ideas are about breeding, you have to be able to pay the bills.
Yep.
And so I'm always I'm really looking forward to being there again and talking with everybody and seeing everybody.
you had asked a question. I don't remember what the last question was for sure, and I didn't answer it because I couldn't get back on. What
Well,
was-
the last question was just, what advice would you give, you know, a new breeder that's looking to get into the Devons?
One thing I would say is I would reiterate everything Jamie said, and then also what David followed up with. I think that's really great advice. I would add one more thing in there. I do think when you go to, go to buy genetics, you need to buy a little better genetics than you really think you can afford. Because I do think in the end of the day, they do actually pay. But those genetics need to have production records behind them and that sort of thing, you know. You need to be able to go back and see what you're buying.
I appreciate that.
There is actually one other line that I forgot to mention that we've just added recently. We did get a heifer from Lakota Ranch recently that Jeremy thought I didn't pay enough for, and I thought I paid too much for. So that tells you about where it was. But anyway, she was the King Henry T65, I think, daughter that we brought in, and we're breeding her to actually that Hillside Fancy C15 son. We want to add a little more width to her cows, and I really like the heifer. She is nice and wide, and I think she'll do what we want to do with her. I might end up flushing her. I want to see what kind of production she puts out first, and then we'll go from there. She might end up being a flush cow for us.
Yeah, thanks, Sheldon. I appreciate that. Some great advice there. Anyone else on the call want to ask any questions, David or Sheldon, before we finish up?
It's Bob Van Kirk. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone out there, and sounds like you got some exciting things going on with your Devons and your different genetics that you guys are using out there, and looking for a great event out there.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate that. Well, I think that's a wrap. Appreciate everyone being on here and the great questions. David, Sheldon, thanks very much. Looking forward to having David host everyone there for this event, and hope everyone has a safe trip, and good luck here in your last week, David, preparing, and Sheldon, be safe in transporting cattle, and take care. Make sure you keep care of that prize winning cow. So good luck, everyone, and have a safe trip.
Together.
Joanne, do you have something?
I just said thank you for putting it all together.
Oh yeah, no problem. Yeah, and just look forward to we're gonna have 3 other presentations here in this fall series. So be on the look for that. We got that in the works, and apologize, for the late putting this on so late. That's just the way things worked out, and with everyone's busy schedules. But I appreciate everyone being involved, and have a good night and safe trip going to Wisconsin.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.